experience in transportation encompasses 3 decades of work that includes public and private sector organizations involving state, county, and local jurisdictions. He has served in leadership positions with 2 state departments of transportation and has worked with both national and private sector transportation engineering organizations. Marc is a registered professional engineer in the state of Texas. Please join me in welcoming Marc.
Great, Chen. Howdy. Hi. How are y'all doing today? It is great to be here, and pleased to really have the opportunity to visit with and speak with this group. A lot of fantastic leaders in the room, and this is a very important program, as we'll talk about, but for this region. And I really do appreciate the leadership of not only Will Conley and the sponsors like HNTB and others that are listed here, but to the many local and elected officials and state elected officials or staff that are here today. This region, because of some of the success that we've had, it's vital that we work together to address a whole host of different needs. Many of those needs are important to the chamber. Many of those needs involve different types of infrastructure, being it, water or power, but clearly our transportation infrastructure is particularly vital, and really do want to thank and express my appreciation for you all inviting me to be part of this conversation here today, and for you all being part of this very important conversation. So when I talk, I often like to not, presuppose how much each of you all may know about the Texas Department of Transportation. So yes, we're the agency that works to maintain highways. Some of us say, oh yeah, you guys are the ones that put up those orange barrels. Yes, we do that as well too. And we've seen a bunch of them. They're kind of like split springtime bluebonnets or dandelions. They tend to come out even more this time of year, but that's a sign of progress. I hope you all would appreciate that. We're headquartered in Austin. We have over 13,000 employees, as Summer mentioned in my introduction, and we maintain the roads and highway systems across the state of Texas. We're the largest state DOT in terms of the amount of highways and the size of the transportation system that we maintain in the United States. And we've got one of the biggest budgets, if not the biggest budget in that area. And that's in large part thanks to a great degree you all as citizens here in Texas that have helped to support that through our elected leadership and bring about the resources that we need to try to continue to maintain that transportation system that supports our state's economy. I serve under a 5-person board which is referred to as the Texas Transportation Commission. Those 5 individuals are appointed by the governor. One of them in particular is from this region, is Bruce Bugg, who is our chairman of the Texas Transportation Commission, and he's, as many of you all know, is from San Antonio. I know he spends a lot of time driving back and forth through this region, going back to his residence in San Antonio and supporting our work with the Texas Department of Transportation in Austin. But we're also divided up into 25 district offices. They're kind of regions, if you will, around the state. And this area is supported by 2 district offices. One, our San Antonio district under Charles Benavidez, and then our Austin district, which is under Tucker Ferguson. And those 2 individuals and their team are vital parts of your points of contact relative to transportation needs and transportation issues in your area. The work, the planning, the design, the environmental studies, and the projects themselves that go on day in and day out are led by those 2 individuals and their teams. And if you haven't had a chance to meet either Tucker or Charles, I would highly encourage you all to reach out to their offices or to seek them out and their teams out, because there's really no one more important to a county commissioner or a county judge or a mayor, then that relationship with your local district engineer as far as the points of contact with the Texas Department of Transportation is concerned. But in addition to highways, we also have a very important role that's directed to us by the legislature, and that is to be the Texas Department of Transportation. Our name changed from the Texas Highway Department to the Texas Department of Transportation about 40 years ago. Back in the 70s, it began to evolve in the name changes, and we have a multimodal system that we maintain. We maintain over 300 help to support over 300 general aviation airports. Those airports themselves are typically owned and operated by local agencies. I know many of you all county commissioners and mayors have those airports in your regions, and we administer a significant amount of funding to help support that need. We also have funding that we support with our urban and rural transit providers around the state that we administer, and that's very vital and important as well. We have funding that was recently passed by the legislature to help support our ports and our waterways. And you heard in the H&TB introduction about their role on the Port of Corpus Christi, and think, well, that's kind of outside of our area. You know, a lot of the stuff that's going up and down Interstate 35 and SH 130 is coming from and through our ports and our border crossings. And so the investments that we make in those areas is of vital importance to this region and to the commerce and to the business that goes on here in the Central Texas region. And so, as you all know, and as I've alluded to, Texas is growing, this region is growing, and as you come down I-35, you can see it. Texas recently surpassed 30 million residents, and we add 1,300 new residents every day to Texas. That's an extraordinary rate of growth. And we recently had Dr. Lloyd Potter, who is the state demographer, who is based out of the University of Texas at San Antonio, come and speak with our commission and our congestion task force about the rate of population growth and its impact on Texas. And this region in particular clearly stands out when it comes to population growth. In 2021 and 2022, many of you all may know, Comal and Hays County ranked number 5th and 7th nationally in terms of the rate of population growth. And they've been consistent. You all have been consistent in that area. The city of Kyle ranked 3rd nationally as one of the fastest growing cities in the nation. And New Braunfels ranked 15th. And so we can see that this region is really has been and continues to be not only a hub of commerce, but a hub of the population growth that comes along with that. And so the demand on us is really to keep pace. And I often engage with many of my counterparts from around the nation who serve as directors of state DOTs. And I can tell you that not all of them have the same challenges that we have here. Many of them are lamenting the fact that they are losing population. Population is moving out of their cities and out of their states. And with that comes some significant budget challenges and budget deficits. So I would much rather have the challenge that we have here in Texas with meeting that demand and addressing those needs as opposed to the alternative. And so what are we doing about it? What is it that we as the Texas Department of Transportation is tasked with? Well, our chairman likes to tell us to execute, execute, execute. That is his call to us on a regular basis. And I can proudly say that thanks to the support from the legislature and the citizens of Texas, we're doing that. And I understand and appreciate that often comes with disruption. Nobody likes to have to deal with a construction in a work zone. And we appreciate that. And we try to do our best to manage those effectively and efficiently. And we've got a team that works on that day in and day out. And we also have a great contracting industry here in the state of Texas that is far surpasses anything else that you see around the nation. And so we're working to deliver those projects. But just a couple of numbers for you all in terms of recent records that we've established. We have a record number of contracts, record number of contract awards, record payments going out to the contractors. And I point that out to point out that work is being done. It's not just projects that are being announced. It's projects that we're breaking ground on, and the work is proceeding at a record pace. In fact, those payments are about 20 to 25% higher than what they've been in just a year ago. And much of that is due primarily to the money that we received through Propositions 1 and 7. Propositions 1 and 7 were ballot measures that passed back in the 2016-2017 timeframe, and that helped to dedicate additional oil and gas surplus coming into addressing transportation needs, and some of the vehicle and sales taxes related to transportation is coming to the Texas Department of Transportation to address those needs. And those ballot propositions, as many of you all may recall, passed by over 80%. There's also the infrastructure bill that was passed at the federal level, but that represents about a third of what we're able to do. And in fact, if it was just the infrastructure bill and federal funding that we relied upon, we would be going in the opposite direction in terms of our ability to keep up with our transportation needs. In fact, inflation alone has eroded the gain that we received from the federal infrastructure bill that was passed a few years ago. And so we're very much dependent and very reliant upon the revenue that we get at the state level. We have a record $39 billion worth of construction underway, and I think we'll soon surpass $40 billion. To put that into perspective, I recently learned that the state of California has about $13 to $14 billion of highway construction work comparable going on right now. So we far surpass what many of our peer states do in our delivering when it comes to making investments in our transportation system. When you look at our Unified Transportation Program, our 10-year plan, it's at a record level, as I mentioned before, over $100 billion worth of projects, construction projects funded over the next 10 years. And when you add in the additional effort that goes into design and utility relocations and right-of-way acquisition, that brings that total investment up to about $14 billion over the next 10 years. And that continues to grow along with our state. Represents over 9,000 transportation projects that are planned and are part of that program. Many of those transportation projects, very importantly, are not just projects that we decide out of Austin where those are. The vast majority of those projects are organically developed and worked on through not only our district office, but also through very important organizations referred to as our metropolitan planning organizations. And I can look over at Will Conley and Commissioner Webb as well, too. Both individuals have served as chairs of the metropolitan planning organizations in their respective areas. As you all are part of a region that includes 2 Texas Department of Transportation Highway Department districts, this is also a region that is made up of 2 metropolitan planning organizations. One, the Alamo Area Metropolitan Planning Organization from that represents the San Antonio area and Comal and Guadalupe counties, but then also the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization that represents the counties surrounding the Austin area. And it's those organizations that we work with very closely when it comes to planning and prioritizing the transportation projects that take place. And not too long ago, under the leadership of Commissioner Webb and Commissioner Conley, we began to undertake a collaborative effort between those 2 MPOs to work together to realize that those transportation projects need to do a more effective job of connecting, and coordination is vital. And so that has been an effort that was kicked off not too long ago, and it's an effort that we continue to help to support and has to continue to be sustained. And I would encourage and strongly endorse this region's efforts to maintain that great progress that we've made. As I've noted earlier, we've had over $39 billion of projects under construction in the state of Texas. Much of that has gone into our rural areas of the state, and much of this region is representative of areas that are still considered rural, believe it or not. I think it's rapidly changing. But that investment, when you look at we had about $2.2 billion going into rural areas on an annual basis in 2019. Today, it's the 10-year plan includes over $19.2 billion. It's about almost an 800% increase in that investment that the Commission is making to address our needs. But we've also seen similar growth in areas involving our urban areas and suburban areas and areas along our borders and so many areas that we rely upon for sustaining our transportation system. In addition just to delivering, quality is of vital importance as well. Our pavement condition score target is 90% rated good or better. We're almost at that for the first time ever. So we're working to invest in the quality of our transportation system. Mentioned earlier the number of bridges that we have in the state of Texas. We have almost double the number of bridges and bridge class structures as the next state. Yet, we rank number 1 or 2 on the list of top quality bridges as rated by the Federal Highway Administration year in and year out. So not only is it an investment in quantity, but it's an investment in quality, and that's something that we are working very hard to continue to maintain. Unfortunately, one of the areas that has been a challenge for us is the topic of safety. And Texas is not alone in this area. We often point out that we lose about 12 individuals a day tragically on our highways. And if you go back to 2019, pre-pandemic, we had about 3,600, a little over 3,600 fatalities on our road back in 2019. Through the course of the pandemic, that number jumped significantly, over 20%. In 2021, 4,456. Now, we've begun to see that come down a little bit, and we're hopeful when the 2023 numbers are done, we'll be a little bit below 4,300. That's certainly not something to celebrate at all. That's still nearly 12 individuals every day that are not going home to their friends and family. And it's something that we have to continue to work to address and to improve. And so that remains our number one focus when it comes to how we maintain and manage our transportation system statewide. And I hope that you all will help me to continue to emphasize the importance of something as simple as wearing a seatbelt. If everybody wore a seatbelt, we would reduce those numbers by about 40%, just by a little bit of context. So there's a lot of behavioral things that can be done to change that fatality number, and I hope you all will join me encouraging people to take that lead. I do want to thank, and we've talked a little bit about partnerships today, and I do want to thank this region for your partnership with the Texas Department of Transportation. We talked a little bit about, or Summer pointed out in her introduction, some of the work that's happened here in Hays County. Projects that have involved not only working on the bond programs that have passed, but that has been combined with investments that the Texas Department of Transportation is able to bring to the table that have helped to sustain and deliver more transportation improvements. And projects like the FM 110 project are so vitally important to helping sustain not only just the accessibility, but also to sustain projects and to help reduce congestion on projects like I-35. When you can avoid introducing local traffic and give people alternatives to I-35, that's very critical. And they don't have to be big alternatives like SH-130 or 281, and we're addressing those. But they can also be local alternatives like FM 110 and looking at those local arterials and making sure that we're sustaining those. I-35 is very much will continue to be Main Street, Texas. And as you drive from San Antonio to Austin, you will continue to see significant highway construction projects that are underway that are needed to help sustain that corridor. And in fact, and believe it or not, our districts are beginning now working with the MPOs, the planning process to look at further widening within this region and addressing, the need to continue to upgrade Interstate 35 to meet those transportation demands. Later this year, we'll begin working on the CapEx project, the construction of that project in Austin. We're already seeing some of that work going on the south of downtown, but that'll begin to be a major part of the effort that we're doing. And then in addition to that, you can certainly see on the southern side the work that's going on in San Antonio. And I know everybody in San Marcos will be anxious to see that project, the project that we're doing here in San Marcos, be completed and opened up. And this is just examples of the continued sustained effort that we're doing to help support this corridor through the Central Texas region, through connecting San Antonio and Austin, connecting communities like New Braunfels and San Marcos and Kyle, and Buda, and many others, as this region effectively continues to grow together and become a sustained region in and of its own right. And we'll continue to be part of that with you all, with the Texas Department of Transportation, and we'll continue to look to help to deliver for Texas. So thank you all very much for the opportunity to be here. What? You can't take a seat. All right.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. If y'all would, please give Mark another round of applause. It's great to see so many of you today. We really appreciate you being here, and we're very grateful, Mark, to have you here. It's not often we get the Director of TxDOT to come speak to our community, and it really is an honor for us. I have a hobby of fishing. I'm a horrible fisherman, so something I do like to do is watch the intercoastal canals and all the freight come into our ports, and know that freight's hitting our state system, the responsibility state and DOT has in that port system, and then go out throughout our country. If I'm not mistaken, Texas is still the lead exporter in the nation. So it's really phenomenal and tremendous amount of responsibility that Mark and his team of 13,000, the commissioners on the board, the governor and our state leadership has, and we're just very thankful and very grateful for their service. We have a few minutes here, and for some awful reason, they gave me an iPad, which is a bad idea. But I want to read off a couple of these questions, Mark, if you could try to answer them. First and foremost, there's been a lot of press here locally over the past week. Looks like the state's going out to a public process, hear from the public about their interest and their needs and how they view I-35 in this region, this area in particular, coming up. Could you speak to some of that, kind of what the state's goals are?
Sure. I alluded to it just a little bit as I concluded my remarks, and it basically is the process of beginning to ask the questions. Okay, what next? What are the additional needs? What are the additional priorities that we need to begin the planning for to look at future upgrades to Interstate 35? The work will never conclude on Interstate 35 between Austin and San Antonio. I can say that pretty definitively, and I think I heard some groans in the room when I say that. But the demand, the growth, the population, the business, the commerce, it brings that about, and we have to continue that process of asking those questions and engaging people like you all in this community about what those needs are and how we, as the Texas Department of Transportation, can work with partners like the metropolitan planning organizations that I mentioned before, along with local level folks at the counties and the cities, to understand your needs and to help effectively address those. And we're beginning and kicking that effort off, and there's information available on our websites about the timing and the location of some of the public, what I would call listening sessions, if you will, as we begin that process.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Starting to get a series of different questions now. This is an interesting one I think is vital. What role does educational institutions play to assist the transportation workforce needs of our region and state?
Oh, that is a very vital and important question and topic. Our workforce needs. One of the things. First again, let me take this on one as a glass half full type of a thing. I'm never more encouraged and excited when I speak to some of the young professionals that are coming into our transportation workforce. We are throwing more and more at our young professionals earlier and earlier in their career than anybody would have thrown at me when I started my career, and there may be other reasons for that, but it is amazing the amount of talent that we have coming into what we're doing, and not just on the engineering side of it, but in our skill in our professional skills areas associated with our construction and operations. A lot going into information technologies and beginning to have conversations around the topic of applications of things like artificial intelligence. And yes, we're already applying AI into some of the things that we're doing, and having people that have got the ability and the expertise to bring that to bear. But we're also working at the local level as well with different organizations. We're not the only infrastructure game in town. And we work with the city of Austin and Travis County and in the Central Texas region on kind of a collaborative effort to address and understand the needs associated with our transportation workforce. And similarly, we have needs in the San Antonio area. And so I think the educational institutions beginning, at an early age and helping to introduce students to opportunities in the infrastructure arena is vitally important, and we also are part of facilitating that. We have and continue to have about several hundred to 1,000 students that work for us part-time over the summer, and many of those continue throughout the year. Again, all over the state in different types of skill areas that are part of transportation, and this to me is the most exciting time that I have seen in my career to be part of the transportation industry. And it's much different, again, than what it was when I started in my career. And I think the degree to which our educational institutions can help to get that information out, to get that word out, to introduce students early on to some of the great things and the great career opportunities that come about in the infrastructure arena is vitally important for us.
Thank you, Mark. I know we see that on the public and the private side in all our infrastructure needs, and it's vitally important. We don't have a workforce, we can't do our job, can't do it at a high level. Let's see here. Let me try to realize this guy's the director of the entire state, right? Some of y'all asked us some very localized questions. We got another panel coming up, so let me look through some of these things. What's the state doing, if anything, to help lower carbon emissions? And is there any light rail interests on behalf of the DOT in our region in the foreseeable future?
Well, I think we realize and recognize that our transportation system exists not just on behalf of the Texas Department of Transportation. We have to work collaboratively with our transit service providers around the state, both at the metro level, be it VIA or Cap Metro, VIA in San Antonio, or Cap Metro up in Austin. We also have to work with our regional service providers like CARTs that provide coverage to the urban and rural areas of the state. We do have limited funds that go into those areas, and the state of Texas has structured a different fund source and a fund structure to provide for capital improvements associated with transit projects. Those are the sales taxes that many of our metro areas are able to employ for that purposes. But those systems all have to work together. And when we go through the planning process for major transportation projects, either in San Antonio or Austin or in the area in between, engaging with and being part of addressing the transit needs in those areas is a major part of what we do. And as we think about something like the I-35 reconstruction and widening in Austin, a big initiatives for that region as well is what they call Project Connect, which is a major rail initiative associated with Cap Metro there. Connect is not going to work very well without some of the planning and the coordination that we were able to bring about with I-35, because they've got to get across our roads to make that system work successfully. And so that's really the most vital area that we look at when we talk about transit collaboration and coordination. When it comes to carbon reduction, one of the challenges that we have is, as a state, we're not at the point where we can reduce carbon right now. We're continuing to see coming to our state what I often have pointed out before to some of my fellow state DOTs is, well, we're kind of your carbon reduction because all of your cars are coming to Texas, so we're helping you reduce your carbon. It's a little bit more of a challenge for us. And to be honest, when you talk about that, the transportation industry as a whole can help to address congestion, to relieve hotspots, to decrease delays, to help encourage opportunities for transit where that may come. But the most significant part of carbon reduction is something that's really outside of what we do as a transportation agency, and that's just the vehicle emissions themselves and the standards that go into those vehicles. And those are dictated and directed at the federal level and by the automakers themselves. And we're starting to see improvements in the vehicle fleet mix. And as vehicles become more fuel efficient, we look at alternative types of fuel sources. That in and of itself is by far the most significant impact that we can have on reducing carbon when it comes to transportation.
Thank you, Mark. Let's see. Does the state have a role in creating vehicle charging stations? And if not, should they?
Well, that's a good question. So what we do have a role in is there was federally designated funds that were included in the infrastructure bill that passed Congress now almost 3 years ago. We're into our third year of that. And that funding included a set aside for electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And so we are utilizing that and putting out a program. You can find information on our website about the electric vehicle charging plan here in Texas. All the states have one to make those funds available. It's kind of a public-private partnership, if you will, for the use of and the development of additional vehicle charging stations. I would say that, one, we have not put any state funds into that. That's a federal program. We're putting that federal initiative in there. And I think it's a very valid point to discuss whether or not that should or should not be something that the government needs to be involved with. But at the federal level, the decision was made to make those funds available, and we're going to make those funds available, the federal funds, as cost effectively as possible for the purpose that they're intended. And it'll be up to Congress and others to make that decision as to whether or not that program needs to continue. Keep thinking Will's picking out the really toughest ones to throw at me here. Let me find a good one here.
I'm serious. There's a lot of really localized things on here that I've no business asking you about. The like, how can we improve the traffic at Bobcat Stadium? I mean,
Tucker Ferguson,
the mayor's right here.
Yep.
I saw Lori, Commissioner Inglesby is here. Have a conversation with them. Let's see. That's. I tell you what. I'll ask a question, but I'll thumb through, find some more. But it's kind of along the lines of some of the things you said that we're all, supportive of trying to lower emissions. As you know better than anyone, the overwhelming amount of our funding for transportation comes from the gas tax. As we evolve and these things continue to change, that's going to have a major impact on that funding source. And I will remind people in the state of Texas, it is not only transportation, 25% of that gas tax money off the top goes towards public education in this state as well. So we have, I think you can arguably say, two of the most important issues tied to that revenue source. As we begin to change, that system's going to change. Those numbers are going to change. What internally is the state talking about inside the DOT and with our state leadership on forecasting that and ensuring that we continue to have the right type of investments in transportation and frankly in public education as well.
Yeah. So let me say first of all that as I talked about in my remarks, I do want to express my appreciation to our state elected officials for the support that they give to our program. It's been vital and needed. We faced a lot of challenges over the past several years, not only with the population growth, but also with the significant inflation impacts that we've seen in our industry that has kind of eroded that buying power. And I really, shudder to think where we would be if we did not have that support. Is it enough to keep us up, keep up with things? I think it's tough to say that when we're seeing the amount of population growth that we are seeing. But you mentioned our motor fuel taxes that are applied. That has been kind of a regressive tax in terms of its buying power. It has steadily declined. It hasn't been raised since the early 90s. That's both at the state and the federal level. There's two components. One is federal, one is state. And they're about roughly equal in terms of what they contribute to our area. And that continues to represent a smaller and smaller portion of our revenue. Now, fortunately, and our job is to help educate people about that, to point out that, look, if the motor fuel taxes have not increased since 1992, you've got, inflation. You've also got the good news of vehicles being more fuel efficient and using other types of fuel sources, so they're not buying as much gasoline on a per mile basis. They're not emitting as much carbon on a per mile basis in those situations. But what that means is that, if we want to sustain what we're doing, we have to be able to look at other fund sources and to keep an eye on the opportunities associated with that. And I mentioned Propositions 1 and Proposition 7. Both of those have gotten to the point now that they represent a little over a third of what we deliver from our transportation system, and that has continued to grow quite a bit. The legislature also this past session imposed a vehicle registration fee on electric vehicles. And those of you all that may have an electric vehicle, are probably not real excited about that, but that represents a user fee for those vehicles that helps contribute to maintaining the roads that they use. And we will expect to see that continue to grow as the number of electric vehicles in the state continue to grow. So I feel like our legislature is doing a good job of staying abreast to the needs on the transportation side. We have to, at our state agency, do a good job of helping to keep them informed and understanding, how those needs are materializing over time. And then you all collectively have to continue to be part of that conversation as well to articulate the needs that you see in your communities.
Thank you, Mark. We have time for one more question. And you and I've had the pleasure of knowing you for many years and working with you. And how many years now have you been director?
I've been director now for about 2.5, almost 3 years.
Wow. So one of the questions here is, through your experience, what are some of the more enjoyable things of being the director of the DOT, and what are some of the bigger challenges?
Well, look, I'm very blessed to be able to have this role. Anybody who gets to serve in public service, and I know that we have many of you all here that have been are in that role and have been in that role, realize that it does come with some challenges and some headaches, but it is a blessing to be able to serve in that capacity and to do the job that we're able to do. Going out and engaging with the 13,000 women and men that make up the Texas Department of Transportation is one of the most fulfilling things that I do day in and day out. I know we've got a number of them here today, and I continue to thank them for the work that they do, but also to engage with the many partners and individuals that are part of that, and understanding and seeing the collaboration and the cooperation that goes in. The frustration part that comes to me is just, wanting and needing to do more. As I mentioned before, the chairman, my boss, continues to hound me to execute. And when we fail to do that as well as we would like, or when we, encounter delays, that's frustrating. It comes with the job, but that pales in comparison to the enjoyment that we get when to see the success of the agency that's brought about because of the hard work of the men and women that work for the agency and the companies and the organizations that help to support us. That's really what's fulfilling, and we're fortunate to be in the state of Texas, where we have the ability to get to do what we get to do. And as much as the headaches come about with the congestion and the challenges associated with it, as I mentioned before, it's a whole lot better than the alternative. And so, thank God that we are here in Texas. Thank God that we're here in Central Texas, where we have those things to worry about.
Marc, it's been a real pleasure, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us.
Thanks for having me here today.